Asylum Inc. presents Phobic, an exploration of fear. The Severed Signal. The darkness beneath the city breathes with mechanical lungs, exhaling the accumulated desperation of 10 million souls pressed against glass screens. It was in this subterranean throat that Riley Penrose first felt the severance, not merely of signal, but of self. The Tuesday blackout lasted 7 minutes and 33 seconds, though Riley would later insist it stretched across geological epochs. Suspended between stations in the fetid bowels of the metro system, she experienced what she described as a fundamental untethering. Her smartphone, that digital umbilicus connecting her to the luminous world above, slipping from sweat-slicked fingers into the grease-blackened crevice between seat and floor. The device fell with the peculiar weight of something alive, its final death rattle a crystalline crack as it struck the rails below. In that moment, Riley claimed, she felt a piece of her consciousness tear loose, following the phone into the oil-stained darkness, where rats scurried between electrified rails and human detritus accumulated in forgotten corners. What began as mundane loss mutated into something far more malignant. The new phone, identical in every specification, felt wrong against her palm, its surface somehow too smooth, too warm, as if something had been feeding on its interior circuits. Within hours, photographs began appearing in her gallery, images she had never captured, yet bore the unmistakable watermark of her eye. The first showed her own sleeping form, photographed from above with the clinical precision of a coroner documenting evidence. Her mouth hung slack, revealing the pink-black cavern of her throat, while her eyes, though closed, seemed to track the camera's movement with the subtle muscle tension of REM sleep. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m., though Riley lived alone on the 14th floor of a building with no fire escape. Subsequent images arrived with increasing frequency and intimacy. Riley weeping in the fluorescent purgatory of a 24-hour laundromat, her tears refracting the harsh light into prismatic fragments. Riley purchasing milk from a bodega she had never entered, her reflection multiplied infinitely in the security mirrors until she became a crowd of herself, each iteration slightly more distorted than the last. Riley standing motionless in her own doorway, photographed from within her apartment, her key still clutched in fingers that had begun to bleed from prolonged contact with the metal. The boundary between observer and observed began to dissolve like tissue paper in acid rain. Riley spoke of phantom vibrations that originated not from her pocket, but from somewhere deeper, beneath her skin, behind her sternum, in the hollow spaces between her ribs where her lungs had begun to feel too large for her chest cavity. She described the sensation of being constantly photographed, her every movement archived by unseen devices that existed in the peripheral spaces between electronic frequencies. Sleep became impossible. Each time she closed her eyes, Riley felt the weight of observation pressing against her eyelids, like thumbs seeking to blind her from within. She installed blackout curtains, disconnected her Wi-Fi, wrapped her replacement phone in aluminium foil. Yet still the images arrived, now accompanied by audio recordings of conversations she did not remember having. Her own voice, distorted through digital compression, spoke of things that made her stomach contract with primal revulsion. Detailed descriptions of the rats she had glimpsed in the subway tunnels, their fur matted with a substance that might have been oil or might have been something far worse. Lengthy monologues about the weight of observation, delivered in a cadence that grew increasingly arrhythmic, as if her recorded self were learning to speak by mimicking human vocal patterns rather than remembering them. The breaking point arrived when Riley discovered a video file she had not created. 47 minutes of herself sleeping, shot from multiple angles simultaneously. The footage revealed impossible perspectives, cameras positioned inside her walls, beneath her floorboards, within the mirror above her bathroom sink. As she watched, transfixed by horror, her sleeping form began to move with the mechanical precision of a marionette, sitting upright in bed and turning to face each hidden camera in sequence, her eyes still closed, but her lips moving in silent conversation with her unseen audience. Riley's final coherent act was to return to the subway station where the severance had occurred. Witnesses described her behavior as ritualistic. She lay prone on the platform, pressing her ear to the concrete as if listening for something far below. When approached by transit police, she spoke only of the conversation and the others who had been unplugged. They found her 3 days later, collapsed outside her apartment building in a pool of her own cerebrospinal fluid, which had leaked from her ears in quantities that suggested catastrophic pressure differentials within her skull. In her hands, she clutched the shattered screen of a device that belonged to no known manufacturer. Its circuits fused into patterns that resembled neural pathways more than electronic components. During lucid moments, Riley insists that the original phone, the one lost in the subway, continues to broadcast. She speaks of a network that exists parallel to our own, populated by the digital shadows of those who have experienced similar severances. These shadows, she claims, have learned to navigate our devices with increasing sophistication, studying our habits and preferences until they can perfectly mimic our digital presence. Most disturbing is her assertion that the phenomenon spreads through proximity to infected devices. She describes a kind of technological lycanthropy, wherein prolonged exposure to compromised phones gradually transforms the user's relationship with their own identity. The infected begin to experience themselves as external observers, watching their lives unfold through the mediating lens of screens that no longer belong entirely to them. When pressed for details about her current condition, Riley's responses become increasingly fragmented, as if she were receiving information through a damaged transmission. She speaks of shared access and bilateral connectivity, suggesting that the boundary between user and device has been permanently compromised. Her pupils dilate when discussing these topics, and brain scans reveal unusual activity in regions associated with facial recognition, as if she were constantly processing faces that exist only in digital space. Attending notes, Dr. Ava Calder. The patient exhibits classic symptoms of severe dissociative disorder, yet her condition defies conventional treatment protocols. Standard anxiolytics produce no measurable improvement, while attempts to provide therapeutic electronic devices result in immediate physiological distress, elevated heart rate, spontaneous nosebleeds, and what can only be described as allergic reactions to electromagnetic fields. Most concerning is the patient's apparent ability to predict incoming calls to the hospital's main line with 97% accuracy, despite having no access to communication devices. When questioned about this phenomenon, she merely states that the network remembers everything and that unplugging doesn't mean disconnection. I have begun to experience unusual electronic malfunctions in my own devices following extended contact with the patient. My phone's camera activates spontaneously, capturing images of empty rooms, while my computer's microphone records conversations that occurred days earlier. I am requesting transfer to a different case and recommend the patient be reclassified to red-level containment until we better understand the nature of her condition. The rats in the hospital basement have begun gathering beneath her room. They do not flee when approached, but instead regard observers with an intelligence that seems almost connected. If you found yourself stirred, unsettled, or just a bit more wary of shadows, consider offering a like to feed the entity that powers these tales. And should you subscribe, you may yet survive to hear the next whisper from the void.